Today, we are here with Scott Paradise, a pastor that came into our synod in the midst of a pandemic. And so I thought it would be important for us to start interviewing and getting to know some of our new rostered ministers in the Lower Susquehanna Synod. And so, Pastor Paradise, you are first up on my list. So I want to officially welcome you many months into your call here to Lower Susquehanna Synod. Yeah, but if you could just start by just sharing a little bit about who you are and what brought you here to our synod.
Okay. So I was ordained in 1999. So this is year number 21 for me. First time I started in a pandemic, and that's an interesting challenge. And came to this synod from the Northeastern Pennsylvania Synod, and so a neighboring synod. And I'm in Newmanstown, so I'm right in the southeastern corner of the Lower Susquehanna Synod. So there's lots of overlap, and had a fun experience interviewing, and all the interviewing and things happened just before the pandemic hit. So, so my meeting with the Congregation Council, I think, was March 13th. So we moved into a strange season after that.
Yeah, you absolutely did. And so what has it been like for you, Scott, coming to a new synod, new collegial relationships, new people, new places? What has this been like?
Odd. The biggest thing is odd, right? So part of the thing is, right, normally, well, first of all, right, we've never been in a pandemic before, so we're all trying to figure this out. So part of what I'm taking a sense of strength from is the fact that there's no way anyone can tell us we did this wrong,
Right?
because we haven't done this before. So the things that a pastor would normally do when a pastor starts in a congregation, I haven't been able to do, right? I haven't been able to visit nursing homes. I've talked to shut-ins on the phone, but those, hospital visits have been very limited. Home visits, very carefully. I've done a few, but not many, because we need to be respectful of how people are and what their situations are. Plus, we didn't have Synod Assembly in person. Well, we didn't have Synod Assembly this year at all, which is a big chance usually for me to meet colleagues, and colleagues are important to me. So I miss having that opportunity. My wife, Christine, is a church musician. And so the joke that we have is that she has met more of my colleagues in person than I have.
Oh, no.
Because I have not met, the Lebanon Conference does a terrific job. We have a Zoom meeting every Thursday morning, and I've met my colleagues via Zoom, but nobody in the flesh yet. So again, my wife is ahead of me on that. So she's met more of them in person than I have. So it's an odd way to start a call, and it's also fun, though, to try to figure out how to do it. There are lots of people are getting creative. It's an experience. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, I love that you're using the word fun multiple times. That gives me a little bit of a clue that you're actually still having fun in ministry. So I am glad to hear that.
Right.
And so what has been some of the creativity that you guys are experiencing?
So some of the creativity we've been experiencing, ways to stay connected, but yet to go beyond the Sunday morning gathering. Right? That's so often in the church, right? Our Sunday morning gathering is our main kind of time, and how to go beyond that somehow so that we stay connected. So part of the way that we did that at Millcreek, at least where I am in Newmanstown, we were fortunate to have, and I like to talk about this. We were fortunate to already have in place, a phone patch where folks could dial in and listen to the service, and not extremely creative, actually old school, right? Phones, landlines, but it helped us because it was a technology that our older members had, and that they were comfortable with. So it was a surprisingly creative way to be in touch with people. Again, landlines are really not the way of the future, just like typewriters are not the way of the future. But in this case, it was a good tool for us. And now we're pivoting back to unattended worship services. So we'll be back to the phone patch again, as well as YouTube, as well as we've also worked on beefing up the social media presence. So, because we had a Facebook page, but no Instagram, no YouTube. So we've added those things as well as a way to keep people connected. We're coming into Christmas though, too, which is an interesting time. So, for example, one of the things we're doing for Christmas is the congregation has a tradition, I've been told. I've never been there for a Christmas, but they have a tradition that there's a tree in the sanctuary where every family brings an ornament that they hang on the tree.
Nice.
So it's nice, right? And so what we've decided to do, for example, this year is we have a nice, well-sheltered porch. So we've put a tree out on the porch, and we invited people to bring their ornaments at their convenience, take pictures of themselves. We hope to share those on the website. Certainly they can post them to the social media sites. So a way for at least people to see that the things that we're used to have happening in this congregation at this time of the year are being adapted in a way that's hopefully, we believe, helpful. So
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of adapting. I mean, you've talked about pivoting from, being gathered worship, going back to YouTube. Has that been the whole rhythm of the pandemic as a bunch of adaptability?
it has. And what we did, so here's a couple things, right? What we did, it's been an interesting progression since I was called in mid-May. And so we did that service outside. We did a call service outside, which I think is
I
probably
think
one
you're
of the
the
first
first one in the
times our
pandemic.
synod has done that. Yeah. So that was interesting. And then we maintained outdoor worship. So part of what's good about our particular setting is that we're in a rural area. So we have no neighbors. We have 12 acres, lots of space. And, there's an elementary school to one side. They're obviously not in session on Sundays, and there's a cornfield to the other side. So we were able to do, while the weather was warm, we were able to do outdoor worship every Sunday. People could drive up, plenty of room, nice parking lot. We put up 5 big speakers, cranked the volume all the way up. We didn't bother anybody. Not every congregation has that sort of a setting, so we used that to our advantage. And then when we went inside, which we did after it got too chilly to be outside, so the second week of October we went inside, and we socially distanced folks and encouraged mask wearing, and that worked really well for a while. And then right now pivoting to this new, let's go back online again. But what I believe is happening is that we have a stronger base to work from that this go around. Plus, I know more people in the congregation, plus they know me. I think it will be a different and I believe more positive experience pivoting to this time. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you've done a lot of really faithful work. I mean, you're trying to establish new relationships,
Well,
fit
yeah,
with
we're
people.
trying. We're
Yeah,
trying. Yeah, yeah. Well, new relationships all around. In the in the congregation, a new pastor is always starting new relationships.
yeah.
And the other thing is though, we have I mentioned we have the elementary school as our neighbor, which is a terrific opportunity. And so we've been really working at building that relationship as well. Well, here's some of the ways we've done that. Well, let me say this. Number one, we happen to be in a school district. Eastern Lebanon County School District is very friendly towards congregations and the schools working together. So literally the first call on my first day in the office at the church was the principal of the elementary school, calling to say hello. He happens to be a Lutheran, so that's helpful. And so we had a nice conversation. And since then, we've built up, we have a relationship where they use our parking lot for their PE classes,
Nice.
because their PE teacher has figured out a way to do socially distanced PE, but he needed more room than was available at their school. And so, terrific for our council. They were anxious to help the schools. And so so that we've started that relationship. The school has moved some of their PTO activities outside in the weather, and we've strangely, apparently, when parent groups are outside, they're not able to go inside to use the restrooms at the school. Odd rule, I guess, I don't know. So we've made our restrooms available to the parents who are doing it. So
Nice.
For us, I think of them as seed planting, right? Every little positive impact we can make for the church to the community around us is a win-win. So we've taken that approach, and the council was ready to do that, and I'm certainly ready to do that, and it was good to go right in and start doing that. So, and thankfully, again, the principal was also willing to do that. So we're enjoying that kind of a good relationship right now.
Wow. I mean, Scott, that sounds like real gospel hospitality to me, so well
Correct.
done. Well
Correct.
done.
And so one of the things that I say about myself, about my leadership style, is I always have an agenda. It's not hidden. You simply have,
God's agenda, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And if, it's not a hidden agenda. If I don't tell you what it is, simply ask me, what's your end game? Right. And when the principal and I had that first conversation, I said to him, I said, my end game is just that we be good neighbors to one another. That is the end game. And that's what we're working on building. So if God does something different with that, that's God's business. But for the time being, my end game is that we all just be good neighbors to one another.
A little biblical. I like that.
God can work with that. So
yeah, I think so. I mean, it really sounds like you've been able to, in this season, find missional purpose and even engage in new mission and ministry.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. So, and part of what is helpful for me in that is that I have spent, and continue to spend lots of time in my personal life and ministry thinking about questions of purpose. And so, again, I'm always very clear about my purpose, which for me comes from the Ephesians 5, end of verse 8, all of verse 9, where we're told to live as children of light. For the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. So I take my purpose in life and ministry as being enlightened and doing what I can to be enlightened, and then to help enlighten others. So this idea of living as children of light and being committed then to what is good and right and true. So that for me is what drives my life and ministry.
Scott, I love that you have a scriptural view of our purpose. I mean, that's so important. That is so important.
It is. And I think it's challenging. I think it's always challenging for congregations to think about their purpose. And one of the blessings of this pandemic is that I think we've been encouraged to think about our purpose. So, for example, here's one thing I'm always saying. And if people get to know me long enough, they'll hear me say this multiple times. For a long time, the church was a place where every congregation basically functioned the same way. We all had one or two services on a Sunday. If we were big, we might have added a Saturday night service, right? During Lent, you did something on Wednesday night. You did some sort of a community Thanksgiving thing. Every congregation functioned basically the same way. Times have changed now, and I think congregations need to function in creative ways and in ways that are unique to them. So what may work for our congregation in Newmanstown may not work for the congregation right nearby in Schaeferstown. And so because they don't have the kind of setup we do, they don't, their setup is different, and every congregation setup is different. So part of what I've done also during this pandemic is I've seen it as a permission giving element. Again, because no one can tell us we did this wrong, because we've not done this before. And it's a chance to be, for me, I think, a little bolder in trying to make some adaptations. so back to the question of purpose. One of the things then we quickly talked about when I came to Millcreek was, what is our congregation's purpose? And over the last 21 years, I've tried to work with congregations on that, and it's sometimes challenging. Congregations aren't used to having that question asked, because for so many years we didn't have to ask that question, because basically our purpose was all the same. And so now we have to think differently. And so the purpose statement we came up with was helping God restore and renew our community, our congregation, and ourselves. And the council was right on with that. They loved it. Right. And even noticed that, and I have to take credit because I structured it in a certain way. I was a little manipulative in structuring it. Right. So it's structured in terms of community, congregation, selves. And, one council member did ask, this actually is an interesting story. Sometimes it's easy to be bold in theory, but then when someone hits you with a question, it's harder to be bold. And so one council member asked, well, why is community first in this? And I gave sort of a not really helpful answer. Thankfully, another council member said, it's saying the simple message that we care about others first. He said it better than I did. So, right. So we intentionally structured it so that, we're concerned with helping God, because God does all the work, helping God restore and renew our community, our congregation, ourselves.
That's fantastic. I mean, really what you're talking about is taking a missional statement that if we're not careful, it just gets slapped on the bulletin or on our website, but actually making it missional. It guides us, we embody that. And so that's the hard work. Like sometimes when congregations can identify a mission statement, then that's actually what we use to make our decisions and what we say yes and no to, and how does our budget align. So very faithful work, but it's not always easy to be missional within that mission statement.
Correct. And so, again, part of what I've seen is there's some permission with this pandemic to do things a little more in a more creatively adapted fashion. So you are exactly right, Marsha. So I went to seminary in the mid 90s, and mission statements were really popular in those, right? And it's exactly what you said, right? We were all said we should have mission statements, and congregations developed them. They were often too long, they were often too complicated, and then they stuck it on their letterhead, and then everyone forgot about it. Correct. So at least in this call, and please, I've had limited success with these things over the years, right? At least in this call, I said, well, let's try to really do that. And so we did that. So, or at least we're starting to do that. And so, right, from what I know about mission statements is once a congregation has one, the point is that the pastor and the leaders need to be relentless about reminding people of it. And so, I certainly try to work it into sermons. And what we've done is we've reorganized our, parish announcements, that handout that goes out where basically all the announcements are organized according to that mission statement. Right. So the first segment of the announcements is what we're doing to help God restore our community, restore and renew our community. Then the second section is what we're doing to help God restore and renew our congregation. And that's where all the business type stuff goes. Right. And then the last one is ourselves. And that's where all the personal, here's who we're praying for this week. Here's a card shower is happening for this person. So all the things about our individual lives go in there. Again, my hope is that people will start to see everything that we do in terms of that mission statement.
Yeah, and it's a really effective way to message the mission that's happening, to keep, bringing that full circle. That's great. One of my colleagues, Richard Jorgensen, who often helps us on congregational renewal, redevelopment, development work, the pivotal question that he asks congregations is, if you no longer existed, what would your community miss? And so I love that your mission starts with community, that piece. So because some congregations really don't have much of an answer. We don't know what they would miss. So it sounds like you're working towards living into that.
We are definitely working towards it. Please God, we will get to a point where everybody knows that that is our purpose. So,
right.
But for now, the council and the pastor and the office staff are working really hard at trying to make it happen. So,
yeah. So in closing, Scott, like, would you say, actually, no, I'm not going to frame that for you. Like, what would you say are your hopes for maybe looking at your vision for the next 1 to 3 years? What are your hopes here in ministry?
What are my hopes here in ministry? My biggest hope is that congregations, and I think if congregations adapt, the larger church will then adapt. I think this needs to be a bottom-up experience, and we really need to be willing to adapt, I guess, is the bottom line. I find myself saying to my council leaders all the time and to my wife all the time, if you had asked me, 20 years ago when I started ministry, would I be saying things like, we can't just keep doing the same thing we've always done? I would be shocked to hear me saying that.
Right.
Right. One of the things I say is that, and again, if you talk to me long enough, you hear this all the time, right? Even though I've been only ordained 20 years, the church I was ordained for doesn't exist anymore. It's changed dramatically. When I was first ordained, I didn't have to worry so much about getting information to people because I knew I would see them on Sunday, right? Because basically it was a time when most members came to church just about every Sunday, right? Now we're at a time where regular attendance is maybe 3 times a month. We can lament that. We can say we wish it weren't so, but it is so. And, I guess for me, the prophetic task is dealing with the world as it is, not as we'd like it to be. So really the church, right, Sunday sports are here to stay. They're not going to go away. The blue laws are not coming back. We'd certainly like them to. It's not going to happen. So how do we then faithfully adapt to responding to that world? And I think part of that challenge is still being part of the answer to that challenge is still being invented. We don't really know. But I think that there are ways to do that with integrity. I think that there are ways for us as Lutherans to do that in ways that still look Lutheran. So, for example, one of the things I always say is that Lutheran worship is more flexible than we give it credit for.
Yes.
So we really don't give it credit for its flexibility. And so trying to figure out ways to make worship accessible to folks who are not used to worshiping is an interesting challenge. Still trying to figure out how to do some of those things, but with the Spirit's help, I think we'll get to a better place.
Yeah, well, I'm really thankful that you are on this journey with us. So, Pastor, if anyone wanted to learn more information about your parish, where would they go? Do you have a website?
Okay. Millcreeklutheran.com is the church Facebook page. And we now have, we always had a Facebook presence, but now we've added Instagram and YouTube, so you can find us on both of those places as well. There's even a hashtag Millcreek Lutheran. You can find us. Please be in touch. As I said, I love to meet my colleagues, and it's been hard not to right now, or not to meet them in person. So.
Right. Well, thank you again for taking the time today so we can introduce you. We are glad that you are here.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here. This is great.